jump up. Look over there. Look right at the thing.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Marshall Gold Discovery State Historic Park. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are live here at the park. Because of COVID, we aren't able to do our usual Coloma Gold Rush live. But this year we're going to do it virtually. So we've got different folks coming in to tell us about life during the gold rush. We're going to wait here a few more minutes, see if we get a few more people to come in. My name's Jerry. I'm the volunteer coordinator here at Marshall Gold, and I will be hosting this segment. Today we're going to be talking to some mountain men. But we're going to wait a couple more minutes, see if a few more folks join us. It's a really beautiful day out here today. The temperatures have cooled down a little bit. It's starting to feel like fall. We're really excited about that. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes, see if a few more people show up. Hope you're all having a good day today. Yeah, we got a couple more people coming in. During our demonstration, if you'd like to ask any questions, please just put those in the comments and I will pass those on to our mountain men. A few more people joining us. Just wait a little bit longer, see if anyone else shows up. Today we've got programs at 10 right now. We're going to talk to our mountain men. At 11 o'clock we're going to talk to a gold rush merchant. At 1 o'clock we will be learning a little bit about some of the mining methods the miners use to find gold out here. And at 2 o'clock we'll be down by the river with some miners. Hopefully they will be striking it rich down there. All right, got a few more people coming in. In just a second, we will hail the camp and see what our mountain men are up to. Now, we want to make sure that we don't startle these mountain men because they are pretty well armed and we don't want to get into any kind of trouble. So what we're going to do is hail the camp and get permission to actually come into their camp. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to ask if we can come in the camp and they will give us permission and then we will see what they have to tell us. Hello, the camp.
Be friend or foe?
We are friends. I have a bunch of friends here who want to learn a little bit more about what your life was like back in the gold rush.
Come ahead. Come on into camp. Howdy.
Well, Monterey, I suppose you're wanting to listen about how we ended up here.
Well, go ahead. Tell them a little bit.
It's been a long trip. We started out trapping, getting beaver pelts, selling them, similar to these here.
Back in the early 30s.
Yeah, these are, I wouldn't consider this a prime beaver pelt, but this is what we hunted. We hunted the beaver. And what they would use these for is they would take all the hair off the hides and they'd make beaver felt hats. Beaver felt hats were in style. They made all different types of hats. Matter of fact, the dandies in England always loved their beaver felt top hats. The hat that I'm wearing right here is also beaver, but it's straight beaver hide. It is not beaver felt. And we had shining times up until the late 30s and the 40s.
Yeah, and then the styles changed. People on the East Coast, a town called St. Louis, they decided they didn't want hats made out of the hair of an animal anymore. They wanted a hat, top hats especially, made out of silk. Now, I've pondered on this a long time and I wondered, silk. What silk?
Worm spit.
That's what I was told, and I said, no, can't possibly be. I said, well then, all these little worms that are spitting out the silk, yes?
That's
Okay.
what we were
Well,
told.
I tell you what, you know it takes us a good hour and a half to skin out a beaver pelt this size. How many of those little worms are we going to have to skin to make a hat?
I don't believe that they skin the worms there, Monterey. They use the silk that they spin out of their bodies to make the hats. The hats do look nice, but I still like a beaver felt hat. If it gets wet, it stays its shape.
Yeah.
It keeps you warm. I just don't believe that is a fashion that I would ever wear.
Well, if you were a dandy and walking with your frock coat on a Sunday morning, you might look good in the top hat made out
But
of silk.
luckily, with all of our travels, we were able to get some of the groups coming into Sutter's Fort when we were there. They requested that we loaded up and brought them up here to Coloma where the gold was being discovered. We obliged them. It was good money, and we were able to bring up quite a few different camps up there to bring them here to Coloma. It was about a 3-day trip for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're on horseback, it's about a 50-mile ride.
Yeah.
So bringing people in wagons and such take a little longer. Since we've been here, we've noticed a lot of people that are here for the gold are not stopping to eat meals. Have you noticed that?
I think they're all in a fire hurry to get gold.
And they don't stop to do any cooking or hunting. So since we used to do that, if you remember, we used to be hunters too besides trappers.
Remember the one group that brought us up here, and they owed us, and they ended up trying to pay us with this here. They thought this was gold. Remember that, Monterey?
Oh, that's right. They tried to pay us off. Did you?
Remember that double fist? They tried to pay us with that.
Did you show that group of youngins there?
Did you see this? Can you believe that they were actually trying to pay us with this? This is iron pyrite. They thought this was gold. All I could think of when they tried to pay us with this is, you got a lot to learn. Luckily, we were able to get our money from them.
No, we did. So, what year is now?
It's 1850.
1850. It's been 10 years, 10 I believe, since the last rendezvous that we went to selling our pelts.
Well, remember the prices went down.
Well, everything
We were
dropped
getting
because
$5 a clue, and then they were down to $3.
that's because they changed going from beaver to silk. But shining times they were back then, but
They
not
were.
not anymore. So anyhow, what we've done, like we partner said, we brought in wagons of folks back in here to Coloma because they figure they're going to become rich and famous down there on the river finding gold. They say it's just laying on the ground. Well, I've yet to see it, but perhaps.
Well, we never saw it, but we weren't into digging.
No,
Into the
we're not
ground,
into
huh?
digging. No, we're not into that type of work. No.
I mean, we'd bring in
I don't like
animals.
walking into that water. That's like bathing.
We
Well,
can't have that.
We've fallen down a few times.
Yeah, but that's it.
Well, yeah. Well, you were mentioned earlier. This wasn't a prime beaver. If I remember, we had a good stack of beaver pelts going here just a night or two ago, and those renegades came in, stole our pack mule and that whole pack of mules. Now I'm asking either of you, who was watching the horses?
Well,
It was double fist.
no, it was his.
It was your turn to watch. You remember?
No.
Well, you got to stop drinking. You got to stop pulling on the cork.
Well-
They're double fist. I mean, you fall asleep.
Got two hands, so.
So anyhow,
Hey, gentlemen,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have a question for you. What are your tents made out of?
actually, right now they're made out of sailcloth. With all the ships, the three-masted schooners, the ships that came into San Francisco Harbor, all those ships are landlocked into the harbor right now. Sails cloth is still on the ship. So we went in down to San Francisco and we purchased sailcloth. We had these tents made. Now we did the same type of product that we traded with the Plains Indians earlier on years past. They started out using buffalo hides for their teepees and such. And when the white men, us particular, the mountain men, came, got to know them, became friends with them, we started trading them the sailcloth. So they made their teepees out of sailcloth from then on. A lot lighter to take down, set up, and to move. Because the Plains Indians were what they call nomadic. They moved. They followed the buffalo herds.
So we also have a question. They're asking what your clothes are made out of.
Well, I'll start. My pants are made out of elk. My coat is made out of deer hide, and my shoes are made out of just regular leather.
Cow?
Cow?
Just cow.
Just like
Cow.
my boots.
Just like your
Yeah, my clothing is made out of deer hide.
And same as mine, all deer hide.
And why do you have that fringe on there?
The fringe? Well, there's a story behind the fringe. As you can tell, we probably look like Indians with beards. That's because we did live with Indian tribes, specifically the Plains Indians. And their style of wearing fringe, when they're out hunting, if you notice, I don't know if you can see my silhouette, but when the fringe moves, it kind of breaks up my shadow. So when and us also, when we were hunting, moving through the undergrowth, these move, and it breaks up our shadow. Now, like my partner said earlier, we don't normally bathe. And the reason because of that is because when we're hunting, deer and elk have very acute smell. They can smell something. So we smelled like store-bought soaps, they'd pick right up on that. But if we smell like the earth, dirt, and whatever, wearing the fringe breaks up the silhouette, which helps. Also, if we had to repair something in a hurry, we could pull these off and make a quick repair. Besides that, you must admit, we all look pretty, don't we?
So we had another question. They wanted to know how you make your beaver hat.
Well, for this particular beaver hat, I would just cut me out a circle and then another strip, and as you can see here, it's sewn together here in the back, and this strip goes all the way around, and then the top is laid on there and it's stitched together. This one here is lined with wool, so that way I don't have the bare hide itself rubbing on my head. I can't afford a real beaver hat, so this was the closest thing I had, and this works out really good because when it's raining really hard, it keeps the water off my head and it keeps me warm and it doesn't soak in.
And what type of a hat do you have on, Monterey?
I've got a raccoon.
Oh,
You can see the face. Can you see the face?
you can see the face.
We, again, because we lived with the Indians, we took some of their ways, even some of their beliefs, and they used everything they could. They didn't waste anything. And so they would use the body of the animal to make hats or whatever. Especially with winter coming on, we would be wearing these a lot more. And, you know, they would put things like, this is an antler off a deer, and I've mounted it on a file so we can sharpen our implements, our knives and axes and such. Just things like this. We've made cups out of them, you know, bowls.
So what types of things did you hunt and what types of things did you eat?
A lot of meat, a lot of red meat.
A lot of meat, a lot of elk, a lot of deer, grizzly bear. When times weren't real good, we would eat beaver tail. The beaver is pretty much a large rat. The tail, you've ever had a chicken, that little spot on the back where all the feathers are hanging off the back, they pretty much taste like that. We would take those and roast them over the fire, the beaver tail. Other than that, we would not eat the meat. But I would say predominantly our diet consisted of elk, deer, and bear.
Once in a while, a rattlesnake.
Yep.
Yeah, rattlesnake.
You cook it up, you bread it like you would chicken, tastes just like fried chicken.
We're having a lot of questions about gold and fool's gold. I am going to save those questions for later for the classes who are asking. If you can watch back this afternoon, we're going to have miners talking a lot about the difference between gold, fool's gold, and the different ways that gold is mined. And then how many camps do you have, and do you move often or stay in one spot?
Well, normally we have a base camp where we have a base of operations, and we would actually move off every few days to check our traps in the river, or to go hunting, go off for a few days.
This would be like a base camp. We have all the amenities we need, to chairs and such. This is where we would. If we went off, we would just take a bedroll, something, throw it on the ground, and we stayed overnight. Definitely our trap. Speaking of which, this is the type of trap we would use. We would take about 10 to 12 of these. They're a steel jawed trap. When they open up, they're opened up like this. Shall I show them?
Monterey's going to show how you set this trap. Don't catch your finger now.
Oh, got a hair trigger on it for that reason. Okay, now the trap is set. So what we would do is we'd go to where the beaver live. We would put a smell of another beaver. It's called castor oil.
That's what we keep in this bottle here. This is a bottle of beaver castor.
And we put it next to it, but we put the trap under the water. The reason is because our smell is on this steel. But if it's below the water, you can't smell the steel. And then we'd run this chain, usually about 6 feet long, put a stake in it so that the beaver does come and gets trapped. He can't run off with their thing. So the idea is the beaver comes and it gets trapped in our trap. If they can get away, they will. If they can't, they drown. So we don't shoot the beaver like we do when we're hunting. The idea there is because we don't want to damage the toe. The holes you see in this one right here is where the legs were. Okay? This beaver was taken up on the Klamath, and this is without its tail. You can see how big this beaver was. The tail would have been this much longer. This beaver weighed over 100 pounds when it was taken.
So have you ever been attacked by any animals while you were out hunting?
Oh yes.
Yeah, we've been set upon by grizzly bear. They're very aggressive. I have a mantra that I use whenever I am out in the woods. I always try to hunt with someone who could run slower than me.
I was just going to say that.
So
That's
something you could share with your friends. If you ever go hunting, always hunt with somebody who
you
runs
can
slower
outrun.
than you.
That you can outrun.
So how did you know where would be good places to hunt and where to camp?
Well, one thing you got to look for is you look for trails. You look for prints, whether it's hoof print, paw print, and
Also-
then scat.
Okay, scats. Does everybody know what scat is?
Probably not.
That's-
Excrement.
That's poop. But a lot of times where the beavers are, you can see that they've cut down the trees,
Yes.
the smaller trees, because they're making their lodge out in the middle of the lake or the river.
Or you'll find little slides sliding down, and it looks like a little just dirt slide where they like to slide on their bellies and go under the water. Those are good places
Yeah.
to trap.
And where we've trapped a lot before we came here to this territory was up in the Tetons. So the Indians and that we lived with, they knew where the beaver were because they would trap them also. So what happened as for a camp, if we're just camping, we'd like to be near water, some sort of a water source.
Shade.
And shade. You know, set up a nice camp where we can relax after a day of trapping or whatever we're doing.
So do you ever get hot in your clothes, and what happens when your clothes get wet?
You get cold. That's why we
Yeah.
like to have a fire. Now, mind you, we trap beaver in the winter months, so we're trapping them late November all the way through March.
Yeah.
So we're having to wade out into the water to set the traps and retrieve them. So you end up getting pretty cold. Your lower part of your body is in the water. You're up to 4 foot of water setting these traps. So once you get out, you want to build a fire and get warm so you don't catch cold.
We try to dry out the leathers.
Yeah.
We
Where-
don't have a wardrobe of clothes. What we're wearing is what we have.
So do you get hot in those in the summertime?
Yes.
Yes. But that's when you.
That's when you take that off and just wear a cloth shirt. Since we've been into settlements like Fort Sutter, we've had widow women make us some cloth shirts, which have been nice. We've
That
helped
has
them,
been nice.
helped them with chores, and in payment, they will make us a nice lightweight shirt that we can wear.
I will say though, leather does not have a good warming effect for your body when it's cold, and it's not cool to wear in the summertime. It is very protective though, so if you're on horseback or you're walking through the brush, it protects your body very well. But when it gets wet, it's cold, and it's very uncomfortable. Other than that, I prefer wool clothing myself for
Cold
the
weather.
capabilities of warm and cold. I mean, if it's really hot outside, wool is a lot cooler than leather.
All right, I'm going to ask
that.
one more question, and then we're going to wrap this up. What was the hardest animal to hunt?
Oh.
I'd say elk. What do you think?
I would say elk or deer,
Yeah.
because you
deer-
had to be very,
Very quiet.
very quiet. Deer are very alert, and they have a great sense of smell.
They have a great
Yeah.
sense of smell. Plus, our weapons, our long rifles, they got a range of about 150 yards.
Yeah, about 150.
So we got to stalk them very close. We've got to get within range in order to hunt them.
A lot of times we'd come upon them by accident while going through a trail. Other times I've been off of a deer trail by about 30 yards and sit there and wait, and one comes down. So we've gotten lucky that way also.
All right, well, thank you for your time today. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned a few things from our mountain men. I want to remind you that we do have another program at 11 o'clock. We'll be talking to a Gold Rush merchant. At 1 o'clock, we will learn about how to use a long tom. And at 2 o'clock, we will be down by the river with our miners, hopefully striking it rich. So I hope you can join us again for some of our other programs, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Bye!
Bye.
Bye.